Hello, I'm Melahni Ake, and I am visiting with David Campbell today in Living the Next Chapter podcast. Join me at everydayleaders.com for more information on how to be a better leader in your life every day.
And that's how you start a podcast, when you have a pro on the show. Welcome. This is awesome. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to listen to that promo like 10, 20, 30 times today. Thank you so much for being here. This is great. How are you?
Thank you. This is so much fun. Take two, right? We do the pre-show and get to know each other, and then we say, oh, we can't wait to record. So this is the live day, and I love this.
Right. And we met virtually at Starbucks. I still haven't got my order. I'm still waiting. I haven't got it yet. It's probably going to be
really
cold.
hard when you're states away, right?
Right. I know, right? And but yeah, the moment we met, Melanie, I felt like I was part of your group. You brought me in as a stranger with a microphone and a podcast. You brought me in a second, and I walked away from our pre-chat going, there's good people in the world, so welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love the title. I love what we're going to talk about today. So, because it's everybody that thinks, hey, I don't really have a story. I don't really have much to say. It's just living my life. And then there's this other group of us that are mad about sharing. So this is going to be fun.
The power of a story, and everyone has one. And you might feel your story is small. You might feel your story might not be as powerful as the next person, but the one thing that's unique about your story is it's uniquely yours, and no one else has your story. So we're here to uncover those stories and share them. And it's great having you here. I'm so excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you are where in the world? Let's remind everyone where you are.
Yep. I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. So
Beautiful.
If you're ever driving across the state, from California to Washington, D.C., you'll go across Interstate 70 or 80-90 across the top of the state. So you'll cover it and you'll go, wait, there were more cornfields. What was that state? That was Indiana.
There you go. Yeah. And then I'm up in Canada. So it's great to connect and do this together. It's going to be fun. So let's start with your author journey. Where did all of this start? What day did you wake up going, you know what? I got a few days. I'm going to become an author. I think that's what I'm going to do. Is that exactly how that began for you?
No, not at all. In fact, I was working for 25 years. I was in medical device sales and leadership and doing training and startup companies. And so I had a big story, yet I was transitioning. I was transitioning from, kind of being in that corporate mindset to entrepreneurship. And so one of my friends that was in the John Maxwell team that was also just moving from a corporate job into her retirement job, which was a publisher. And she said, I want to put this project together and I would love for you to be a part of it. And so that was my co-author first opportunity, which was called Mentoring Moments. And Mentoring Moments was about 14 remarkable women having breakthroughs to success. And so we shared our stories, and it really gave me a lot of definition about people really do want to hear your story. They really do care about where your journey has taken you. And in writing that, I got really clear about owning my story, right? You can journal about it and you can tell your girlfriends, like, I can't believe this is happening. Yeah. But when you write about it, you validate why somebody else might experience and learn something from it instead of just trying to figure out the answers to it. That's what I love about writing. I love it. Yeah. And so, and that's where it started. And then through the pandemic, I was asked to be in another project, which was called Pandemic Blessings. Same publisher, another group of women, telling our stories, sharing our stories about how our faith helped us to get through the pandemic.
Nice.
And so it was really a great process to say, I know what I started back in 2019, and I was still going through that every single day, the commitment that I had made back in 2019 to myself in just having a faith leadership group every morning. I was still doing that all the way through the pandemic. And still actually today. Today was 1,262 days that we have been committed to this learning. And so writing Pandemic Blessings was it was just like a snippet of what I was learning at that time, but realizing that through the pandemic, that was what really gave me the stability to know, again, to keep growing and to continue to get clarity. So that was kind of the second co-authorship. And here comes the third one, the impact of influence. Chip Baker. If you don't know Chip Baker, you need to meet Chip Baker, and I will make the introduction.
Oh, I would love it. Thank you.
He is, I should be showing these.
There you go.
So, all right. So the first one, yeah, right. So this is Mentoring Moments.
Yep.
All these women. Pandemic Blessings, which was the pandemic. The Impact of Influence. This is compilation, Why It Is Pink and White. Chip has done a series of these books, and this is the women's version.
Nice.
So this came out last year in March, and we had a women's celebration of all of these authors, amazing women doing incredible things. And so his theme of this is the impact of influence, ladies using their influence to create a life of impact. And so, when he asked me to be in this book, he had spoken at one of my live events, because I do live leadership events, and Chip was one of the speakers. I had February the 29th, 2020. Now remember the date, right? February 29th. It was the one day that you could invest in your personal growth. And the one day of that year, because of leap year, that people were that I said, like, hey, jump into this and change, because you never know what's going to happen. Now, nobody knew 2 weeks after that the entire world would shut down.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was like the pivot. Like, again, it was the heart that stepped forward to say, we all invested in tremendous growth that day. And Chip was one of the speakers at the summit that I led. And so here it shuts down, right? So the pandemic happens, and we're all like, well, what next? Well, Brian Brogan said Voices for Leadership. So Voices for Leadership was a compilation, again, all these authors. And I love this because he did it just like John Maxwell has done his Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. So my picture is like right here.
Memorized. I love it.
Yeah. But it's so cool because it just talks about how you use your voice for leading. So I told my story about my family and the community, my leadership journey of really my DNA and my family legacy here in Indianapolis, and why that was so important to me. And then the impact of influence, another volume 5 I wrote about. This was, using your impact to create a life of influence. But that was more just, that was kind of the story of me playing hockey, right? The things that my mother had influenced me to do very young, and then how that has helped me to be really strategic in my life. So the next chapter is Everyday Moments, Lessons That Transform Lives. And that's going to have my name on it. And it's going to be released very soon. And I'm so excited about it because it's women that have impacted me. And I wanted to share their journeys that have really started to change their lives. And so, that's how clear it's gotten over the last, let's see, the first book was released in 2019. So I guess about a book or so every year that I've been involved in. And now I get to put my name on the title chapter. So
that's
super
amazing.
exciting.
So for an author that's not published yet, and they're trying to figure out how do they get their toe in the water and try writing, and it seems daunting to write an entire book all by yourself the first time out the gate. Any advice about co-authoring and working together with other authors than the way you have?
Absolutely. Here's the thing. Don't think about like something you want to solve. Talk about something you already know.
Okay.
Right? Because we're all an expert already in what we know. And so whether that's where you want to go or whether that's what you dream about, it's what is easy for you to write. And if you don't have access, like I would never even know how to start it, find some people that may have already done it and then ask them for permission to do a co-author book or be in a collaboration. That gives you the confidence of the process. because it's a very easy process for the publishers to guide you through it. It's figuring out if you want to try to publish it on your own or have someone else publish. And the journey isn't difficult. You just have to make a few decisions as you start. For me, it was really easy because I was pulled in. I was talking about leadership and I was having a lot of pain. People saw me going through a lot of pain. Getting eliminated at 50 years old in my corporate job and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and not looking back, right?
Right. Yes.
I wasn't looking back. And so I think that was like, well, you should share your story because other people may learn from you. And I thought, who's going to learn from me? That's a hard lesson.
Yes.
Right. So I don't know. But it gave me validation, David, that my story actually could impact someone else. And in line with that, right, I had started my podcast back in 2018. So before any of these books started, I was doing this every week. And I was learning about leadership, and it's called Everyday Leaders. And it was called 50 and 50 based on my birthday, the 50 weeks of my 50th birthday, like the theme of it, right?
Yeah.
So you get it because you have several podcasts. And when you have a theme and you start to learn from other people about what your topic and your theme is, you start to get really laser focused about being curious, right? Well, what else don't I know? I need to find out everything that I can. And that's when you start to get really kind of clear on, I'm curious about even more. And I wonder if other people have this opinion or what they're learning from this. And that's kind of where it all started and continued as I continued to write and continued to get in alignment with different people. You and I talked offline about Anza Goodbar. Anza Goodbar is an amazing person that I met because I was doing a virtual summit. She and I have become such good friends, now really co-business partners in her new company called Bankable Events. Because I've put on events, I've written books, and she is a great person. If you guys need events, if you're an author and you need to host an event on your own, she's helping me right now with my women's business skill building workshop that's going to be in Indianapolis. We're launching it April the 22nd. And Bankable Events is our sponsor because of all of our collaboration that we've had through our journey. And so Anne's is really helping with the back end content, with the promotion, with the marketing, because she's done over 4,000 events. 4,000 events. She gets it, right? But so I have something I want to teach, and she has this skill set. And so we're coming together with several other leaders to figure out how do we serve in a bigger community and become an expert in our space so that we can allow other people to share their expertise. And that's going to be amazing. So that's what I'm learning though, David. It is collaboration. It is, it is pouring into people that really want to show up and serve. And it looks different every single year because you get really clear about what's your word of the year? What are you going to focus on? How do you want to grow? Who don't you know that you need to know, right? People like you that we say, who are all these other people that are really intentional about growth and that want to really help each other?
Right. Yeah. I love the idea of talking about your podcast as well, a little bit more. And because I love podcasting. And the one thing I'm really noticing, Melanie, is there's just a need for more women in podcasting to get out and share their message in what has traditionally been, unfortunately, very male focused. And I would love to hear more women get out there and share their story and have the confidence to get on the microphone and build community and do that. What do you think? Do you see things getting better for women in podcasting and maybe how do we help it grow even more?
I love that question. I think a lot of women through the pandemic have given themselves permission to just kind of if they have a platform or if they're thinking about starting a business, I think they're getting more comfortable with maybe being guest on podcast because they have businesses and they're like, oh, I'm really curious. Will I reach a bigger audience? If I share my story. However, starting your own, and we've done a lot of classes on this. Joe and I have. My husband, he does media and I'll say audio and video, right? So
Nice.
he does all of that. But we hosted a class on monetizing your podcast about 5 or 6 weeks. Well, actually, it was November and December of last year. So that's been a while. And we had such great response on it because, people were saying, oh, I've started this, but I'm really not going to be consistent with it because it's not paying off.
Mm.
And so I think, when we put out the little feeler of like, hey, do you want to know how to monetize your podcast? That raised a lot of heads because everybody thinks that if you get into podcasting, you're immediately going to make money. Right.
Right.
Not true.
No.
Let's just put that out there right now. Not even true. Not even why you do it. You shouldn't do it if that's what you want to do it for. But it builds community. And if that's why you want to start a conversation with other people, with other experts, with other resource industry leaders,
right,
you should do it. And so that's it, right? That's my message. If you're going to do it for money, don't do it all day long. If you really care about building your influence in a community, then all day long, 24 hours a day, you should be on the microphone because it's your heart, it's your authenticity that people really need to be inspired by so that they can do that hard thing. They can do that hard thing in their life and you'll be the resource for them. So that's why I think you should do it. And women tend to, okay, well, I want to do it for right now. And then, but all this other stuff gets in my life, right? You don't understand. The kids have soccer and my husband and my travel. And so don't overcomplicate it.
Yes.
Pre-record your sessions. Like there's a whole system to help you get really clear on how you can do it so you can be consistent. As long as you're consistent, doesn't matter if it's once a month, right? It's the consistency that will get your audience to pay attention and go, oh, you really do care about me. So women tend to get overwhelmed, I think, with all the vision boarding and really the feeling of how I want to change something or be an influencer. And yet that action, we tend to have a lot of stuff and the extra in the background that really just gets in the way. And so like people we talked about, what's my name of my podcast going to be?
Right.
What kind of equipment am I going to get? I'm not a techie person.
Yeah.
I don't have the right environment. There's all these barriers. And what you and I know, you can be on your cell phone, right? You can do this on some of these apps that they have. You can just get on your headset and you can do an audio version of a podcast so that you can share your value and your knowledge. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it video, right? There are so many ways that you can connect to the world today. Mm-hmm. The world, not just your neighborhood, right?
I know.
So it's branding, it's consistency, it's giving yourself permission to know that you actually do have something to teach and that people value, and just go for it, right? Don't think too hard about it. Just if you get pulled and you say, this is something that I believe will help someone, even one person, then you got to figure out a way to start it.
Yeah, because again, your stories can only be told by you. So I would love to see more people who would take that leap and that launch themselves and see what happens, right?
Yep.
And the other thing is you get to learn a lot about yourself in the process as well. Mm-hmm. So you'll become better at speaking. You'll become a better listener because you'll be interviewing people possibly, or you'll be able to prepare your thoughts better, make presentations because you do this on the microphone. My wife works in a warehouse and she's a supervisor, and she used to be timid for the morning huddles. She wouldn't speak loudly and in a large, loud environment, people couldn't hear her. But since podcasting with me, She now is confident. She stands up and speaks, and she gets called into the office for reviews. They're like, Jen, you're really getting more confident speaking in public. She's like, yeah, I have a podcast. I'm in 70 countries. That's not the answer most employers are expecting to hear, right? So it just gives you that one little thing that helps you to improve and grow as well as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I love seeing more people enter the space. And the more, the better.
It's so fun. If you look on anything, right? If you go to any podcast player, you can just search for whatever and somebody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And so that's what's fun. It doesn't have to be like a category that's popular. Like talk about how to tie your shoes. Right? What are the best shoelaces to buy for certain brands of shoes? What are the best heels for women to wear? It doesn't matter.
Anything.
If you love it, talk about it.
Right. There you go. Okay. So speaking of podcasts, if someone's ready to come to your podcast for the first time, where would you direct them to go episode wise? Where should they start?
Oh my gosh. I have so many fabulous ones. I post this one a lot. I reshare this one because a lot of people have been on social media platforms, and especially during COVID, going, what's the best one? How do I engage? And LinkedIn has become kind of for business people, right? A really big network of opportunity. There's lots of conversation around how you show up on LinkedIn and what's the right way. And so I interviewed a guy named Jeff Young. He is the LinkedIn guru, and he's in one of the latest episodes I think we published, and we kind of keep it up there because it has been so popular. He just tells us about all the things that you should and shouldn't do on LinkedIn and how to navigate it. And funny thing is, I was interviewing him on Facebook.
Wow.
So we laughed because I said I couldn't get my technology to work the day that we had scheduled. And I said, okay, well, we're streaming to Facebook doing this. However, we're really going to continue to restream it back to LinkedIn. But he is just, he's got a group on LinkedIn, and he is, the guy. He's been on LinkedIn for a very long time and really knows where all the things are hidden, is the great person to go to as a resource. If you're trying to start something new, or if you want to teach on their new platform, he is the person to kind of help you navigate that. And so I think that's been really a popular segment because that's where business people are trying to learn. The other, I've got so many, but one of my favorites, just a kind of a social favorite, everybody knows Disney World, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at Disney before I went to college. My grandparents lived in Florida. And so I went to the trailers, which was the casting office, not the big castle that they have now.
Yeah.
But back in 1986, there were real trailers that you went into. And so when I got a job there, I learned a lot of different things about Disney in the traditions classes. So what I wanted to learn from that experience was how they treat customers, right? What was the magic that I could learn before I went to college, before I got into the workforce? And so that was a very intentional act. Go to Disney and just experience it. So I did. And what I took with me was so much that it has empowered me to be so successful in my life that I decided when I started this podcast, I want to interview one of the VPs that has led the organization for over 60,000 people. So I reached out on LinkedIn to Lee Cockerell. And at the time he was a retired, executive VP of Disney. And we got into this text chat and I said, hey, I would love for you to come on Everyday Leaders. And here's my story. And he said, well, I'm going to be in France, but as soon as I get back, I want to get on your schedule.
Wow.
That was it. Right. So we had this great conversation, and he told me his story about, being adopted 5 times and taking Cockerell as his name, and like all these things that you're like, but you ran Disney World. So how did you get there? But it's, again, your heart of intention to want to give and add value and do better. And he talked about the 9/11. When 9/11 happened, what did they do? Right. And so he led us through the stories of the service that they provided to all of their guests, because, again, the world was shut down. People couldn't travel and they were scared.
Yeah.
And so that was his responsibility of making those decisions on what you needed to, what you need to think about as a leader and how you need to act so that your team can really respond and do the best that they know how at capacity. So I think, just a lot of those stories. Traci Morrow joined me. She's like the side person for John Maxwell, and I'm part of the John Maxwell team. But I love Traci. She's come on one of my leadership summits as well. She has just a faith-based heart and life. And so she shared some personal things with John, moments with John that she has experienced that have encouraged and inspired her all her life. And so those are just, I have so many. Those few things I think are memories that I hold in my heart really close because they were things that I've experienced in my life and I wanted to share them with people.
Nice. So let's jump back to LinkedIn for a second. For authors, how important would LinkedIn be for an author to build community and connect with people? Should authors be on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Get a hold of the LinkedIn guru, first of all, if you're not familiar with how to use LinkedIn. Here's why. If you are speaking about anything that has to do with people management, leadership, capacity, teamwork, communication, anything that you have on your list that says, I've experienced this in a business setting, and I think that it can improve relationships, communication, teamwork, mindset, any of those things that is a topic in your book, there's probably a company out there that is hiring a speaker or a trainer or a coach to come in and help them with that same situation in their business.
Right.
So it is imperative that people know what's in your book. Whatever is in your book. And that's why as you continue to be a better writer, you start to understand who your audience is, right? What does your audience want to take away so they can trust you and you can teach them something? That's what I'm learning. It's a journey, right?
Yeah.
Because you think, I have all this to say. Yet really, when you write your own book, when you have your own, like you're the only author, it's your book, which I'm still working on too. This next one will be a compilation of some women, but they will all be authors. And here's the reason why, right? So I learned this with my last publisher. She said, Melahni, if there's 10 or more authors on a book project, then everyone is just underneath that main coordinator, that main author, right? So if I did a book with 11 women, my name would be the only one recognized on Amazon. However, I chose 7 women in this book very intentionally because each of them will hold a place as an Amazon author now.
Nice.
So I thought that was when she gave me that little tidbit, I thought, you've given me a really big gift to be able to gift other people with. It's not about me. It's about giving them that opportunity to now become their own voice and their own authorship. So that's what I've learned, like how to move that to a greater capacity. And then, I think when you write your own book, right? When you write your own book and has your own name on it and you're really branding it towards maybe a business. So if you're going to LinkedIn and you want to teach something, you will do a lot of research and it'll take you a lot longer than you ever thought it would. However, you would structure it out, get a writing coach and really help you, think about the process, and then get an editor and get it out as soon as you can, because, waiting will cause inaction and waiting will cause you going to the grave with it. That's what happens.
Right. I love the approach of having the 7 authors. I've never heard anybody mention that before. I think that's a unique way of approaching it. And I talked about at the beginning, that's how I felt when I met you the first time on your phone at Starbucks, is you brought me in right away. And you're doing the same thing for these other authors and giving them a platform. I love it. You're demonstrating it in multiple ways. So there's consistency there. I love it.
I am consistent.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, the thing is, so I'm also a why coach. So part of the John Maxwell team, but I got certified with the Y Institute a few years ago. And I learned a little bit more like all these assessments, right? You take discoveries and assessments. And I've always been one of those is pretty unique and individual. And Strength Finders is individualism and a learner and all of these things. And so I know like I'm curious about a lot of things in life and I'm not afraid, which I think it's hard for me sometimes to connect to people that aren't growth mindset because I don't have this natural fear inside. I don't know. I have the challenge attitude is what I discovered, which was so true. And so when I look at something and that's why, right? Okay, I've been in 5 of these books and yet my name's not on Amazon. It's in the book and I'm really excited about this. Yet when I go to look this up or give this to someone else, it's not something that I can carry with me to build my own plethora, right? So when she said, if you have less than 10, I immediately, like my challenge brain said, how can I do this to serve in a bigger capacity? And so that was just like, it was a no-brainer for me.
Right. And it's a very giving mindset as well, that you could put others ahead of you and help them build their careers as well as authors. So
touche, right?
Yeah, you got me on that one. I'm like, because I do. I look at these multi-authored books online and I'm like, it'd be great if my guest name was showing up online, but it's not. It's in the title, it's in the description, but there's not those on the side, all the different authors that contributed. So,
I mean, it is an honor. It's an absolute honor to be in all the books that I have been in, and because of the person that asked me to take part in it, I understand their heart. Is truly an act of love and something that they saw as a bigger project. I love the lady, Danola Burton. She's with Enhanced DNA Publishing that has done, 2 of my compilations. And now she's doing this next one, Everyday Moments, because she lives in Indianapolis. But it's her approach. She's the one that as a publisher, she's an independent publisher. She will take my book when it's finished and she will say, okay, I'm going to the America's Best Book Awards, or I'm going to this event and I want to lift this book up. I want to place it so it can get an award. And that's what she did for our Mentoring Moments book. Let me see if I've got it on here. Oh, I don't have the seal. But she did, so the best, it got like America's Best Book First Awards finalist. And so she'll be really strategic in how she helps her authors position themselves for awards that you don't even know exist, because that's her job, right? But she works really hard to partner with her authors to make sure that they are getting recognized for their work, for their story. And, she is just an amazing woman. And I refer her to everyone.
So when you look back at your first writing, your first shot at being part of a multi-authored book, compared to the most recent projects you're working on, what have you changed in your approach, or what have you changed your mind about as an author that you do differently now?
I think, well, I have to share another book with you.
Yes.
This book changed my life, The 15 Laws of Growth.
Okay.
As a coach from John Maxwell, he said, read this book and, live your potential through this book. Learning these lessons every week since 2017, I study and teach this book every single week in classes. And so it's really helped me accountable to living these. And then writing, right? Becoming an author, becoming a part of communities that I'm writing with, and then going back and rereading those and saying, gosh, I wish I would have said, or I wish I would have had that moment to teach. I wish I would have been able to communicate that lesson clearer. And so I think that's what I'm learning. Like the first, they always say, go back and look at the first time you wrote, and you probably go, I could have done better. Yet you're getting it off of your chest.
Yeah.
Like if you've never journaled, you're just trying to get, like, do I have validation to tell the story? The more that you write, the more conscientious you are of how do I use this to build a quote around so that people can hold this with them and really apply this lesson into what they're learning from the book. And so one of the things, I'll just share this little Easter egg with you.
Nice. Everyone's like perked up. All of a sudden, everybody's like, "Hey, everybody, quiet, quiet, quiet. We got to do this thing." I love it.
So what I was writing about in this last book that's coming out is, you know, and it's so simple, right? The things that are like right in front of us. Yet when I started to write about it, it was so clear. I said, the transfer of information is truly transformation.
Mm.
And that was
do that again. Do that again. Do it again. I love it. I love it.
the transfer of information
Yeah.
is truly transformation.
Right.
And I speak about this from the information that you know in your head, right? You know how to add 2 plus 2. You know, maybe know how to drive a car. You know how to write a speech. Maybe you know how, to put a PowerPoint together. But it's when it transfers to your heart that it becomes transformational.
Mm.
When you start to do this about other people, when you start to do things intentionally in your life to share it with someone else, to teach them, to add value, and then create significance around whatever you know, that's truly a transformational moment. That's the lessons, right? Those are the lessons that you learn and you say, well, maybe it was insignificant, but maybe someone else in your life that watched you through that you were a witness to, that changed their life.
Mm.
And I think about that teacher, that person that spoke into you at your life at one point that gave you the confidence, right? They gave you the confidence to be who you are. And before that, you didn't really have that belief. So that's like what you know versus what you do, who you are. That's that transformation.
That's great. That is, you got me again. This is so, wow.
It's what I'm learning,
Yeah.
and I live it. And so I
Yeah.
really believe that this is the process that happens in my tribe of people like you that just really want to pour into people, and we want to all go on this journey to learn from each other.
Right.
That's the magic.
Yeah. Somebody said something along the lines when wealth is added to your life, instead of adding fences to protect your wealth, create a bigger table and invite more people to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Don't push people away, but bring people to you and build your community. And I'm like, yeah, like as you get the wealth of connections, add more connections.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Don't put up a wall and say only these people are now part of my group. No, add more people. Right. Like make the table bigger. Just make it bigger. And by doing that, you can help more people. So that's kind of been my thing in the back of my mind is how can we include more people? Again, let's jumping back to women in podcasting, for example. How can we get more women to come to the microphone and help more women? That's what we need, right? How do we get more authors to get their book out of their journal and their desk and get it into the world where somebody can read it?
Mm-hmm.
How can we make this table bigger? And that's really what I'm hoping to do by the podcast, having great guests come on and share their journey. That's really what my focus is.
Well, I if you've written a book and you're not podcasting, you are missing it because people want to know, right? That's why Ansa's like, hey, I'm going to help people with events, because if they're doing something they believe in, writing a book it's hard work. And when you're writing your own book and you have that platform, and so you didn't write it to have it on a shelf, you wrote it to share. So if you have done that, if you're working through that process, even starting just getting online on Zoom yourself, you don't have to have a group. Just get on and start talking about why you thought these things were important. And you'll get clarity if you do that consistently. You'll get really clear on who's responding to you, who you're helping, what questions people have, and it'll give you clarity on that next step. Yeah. And so, but it's scary to show up, right? It's scary. It's scary that first time. And so I say that with kid gloves because I know I don't have a whole lot of fear around it, but it is scary. Yeah. So just get the right people to encourage you, or call us because we'll push you.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing too, I look at having a book is not the finish line. It's the starting line. right?
Yes.
Because it will open doors for you. It'll create opportunities for you that not having the book won't open those doors. So you need to get that book done.
Or start it if you're writing the book.
Get it going. Yeah, exactly.
If you're writing the book, start talking about what's inside of the book so people can get excited when it comes out. And then they'll be like, hey, I need to hire you. Like if you've written a business book or any of those topics that I talked about, any one of those things, if you have a chapter in it, you can make a PowerPoint slide out of it to do a presentation for a keynote, for a speech, for a business training, whatever. And so if more people know about it, that consistency on an Instagram page or whatever your book's called, right? Start talking about it immediately about the content. And that way people can connect to your story. They can share it. They can, understand what your passion is around this. And I guarantee you'll start working on your second book before you're finished on your first one.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, I didn't include that yet.
Yeah. And what I love too, looking back, Melanie, at all the things you've written, you are the perfect representation of the name of our podcast in that you're living your next chapter in each of these books, right? And you're living it on display for us to come along and celebrate and to be a part of your community. So it's open doors, and it's opened the door for us to have a conversation today. And my life is better having time with you and getting a chance to speak with you.
Oh,
really enjoy having you on the podcast.
This has been fun. This has been a lot of fun. You got to come back. You've got to come on Everyday Leaders and share some time with me.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay, let's do that. That sounds great. Melanie, how does everybody connect with you? Find the podcast, the website. Where do we go? We're all waiting. We've got our notepads out ready to make note. How do we connect with you? What do we do?
Go to everydayleaders.com. It's all right there.
Right there. Amazing. So everyone, please go there. And if you ever want to meet somebody who will make you smile, she's right here. Melanie's with us on the podcast. Thank you for being part of the podcast. Thank you for sharing your laughter, your smile, your great thoughts, and your commitment to helping people do life better. I appreciate you having you here.
Thank you, David. Let's live the next chapter together.
See? Oh, I love having podcasters on. It's so easy. It's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you for being here on Living the Next Chapter. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed having you here on the podcast. Our authors are amazing. I hope you appreciate their time, their effort to make this possible. If you know an author, if you want to recommend an author, that's a good idea. Hey, if there's an author that you really would love to hear about or hear from, if you send me a message, you speak pipe on our website, livingthenextchapter.com, send me an email, go over to livingthenextchapter.com, send us a message. We will forward your message to that author and say, listen, you are being requested to be on Living the Next Chapter. Our audience can't wait to hear from you. You can help shape the show. Yeah, you could do that right now, actually. You got a minute, right? Okay, how about you do that? livingthenextchapter.com. I'll see you over there. Recommend an author. Yeah. See ya. Thanks.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.